right, perfect. It's go time in 3, 2, 1. Let's do this. Welcome to G Money, real talk on everything mortgages and real estate. Today I'm here with Karen Heyrend and Natalie Oman.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi there, Greg.
So this is a return visit for our dear friend Natalie. She was on episode number 1.
Oh my gosh. Yes, it was a while ago.
And we still one of our highest rated. You had great things to say, and we had quite the equestrian talk on an episode. Go back and re-listen to it.
I will.
Yes. So we're here, and I'm glad that we're here together because since then you've teamed up with Karen, and you guys act as a team, and I always like to hear about that. So talk to me about how you guys joined forces.
How do we join forces, Karen?
2 versus 1.
Well, hey, Mega Force is here. Actually, we met a number of years ago, training in Berkshire Hathaway, and Natalie was fairly new a couple of years ago. I was doing training and mentoring, and we just kind of realized that, wow, we have the right things together that kind of work and complement each other.
Yeah.
We have skill levels that are different, but really uniquely work together well. And so we kind of put our forces together, and it's been nothing but fantastic for us.
It's been almost 4 years.
I know. It doesn't seem like it, but
Oh my goodness.
surprising how time flies.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah.
It's been a
does fly.
powerhouse for us. It's been a powerhouse with our clients and everybody, and it's worked amazingly well.
Yeah. Wonderful. And as you said, you're with Berkshire Hathaway.
Yes.
Shout out to them.
Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, California Properties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a mouthful.
We'll put our DREs at the end. There.
Yes, we'll make sure we have all of our licenses. Anything we do, it has equal housing lender and all
Yeah.
of our
All
licenses.
that tied in.
And oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll get all the disclosures for the listeners in there. Make sure we're compliant.
Yes. Oh, yes. Compliance.
So we've been teaming up on, let's talk about Ventura Local. This is, I don't know, do we call it a newspaper, a paper?
Yeah. It's just our little local community and real estate minded newspaper that Karen and I put out, and it's been such a fun venture for us. We've put out a couple of editions now. I keep trying to call them issues
They're
or
publications, and they're fantastic,
Yeah.
and they're neighborly, and they're local, and they're really kind of honing in onto a specific, clientele for us. So it's really worked rather well.
Yeah. You know, I love it because it's not just a standard postcard. I mean, we still get involved and send out some co-branded postcards, and they're great and they serve a purpose. But this is like, I don't know, you could probably tell me how many pages it is. You know, there's content, there's articles, it's about Ventura, and yes, it's about real estate, but there's a whole lot more. And
So much more.
this episode has a cute little dog, man.
That's our little
That's
smart
Walker.
dog.
Yeah.
That's Walker. And he's quite a hand, but he's in this issue as well coming up. With
Yeah.
all kinds of great tips, and so it's been really good for us, this particular publication, and we're doing rather well reaching out to locals.
Now, right now, you're mailing this out. Is there like an online way to download
We do
it?
have an online version that people can access. Yeah.
Okay.
You can see all the back issues there.
Sure.
Because right now, are you mailing out to all of Ventura, or
We're
just a
mailing out
specific
to
zip code at this point?
Yeah, to 93003
Okay.
or 93004. That's my zip code in case you're wondering where I live.
East side, let's give a shout out. Well, what I want to do is make sure that those that aren't already receiving it, they have an opportunity to check it out,
Absolutely.
because it's such great information.
Well, and I love too that we're highlighting neighbors. I mean, we've got the Tractor Man Jim
Yep.
in one. We've got Roger in one. We've
Tractor
got
Man Jim.
Yeah, Tractor Man Jim. Is so
Oh
cool.
my gosh.
90.
How do you
90 years
yeah,
old.
he's 90 years old and he still drives tractors at Underwood Farms and then in
Parades.
the parades.
Phenomenal guy.
Man.
Phenomenal guy. Then we did our VA. You know, we like to be respectful and shout out and just talk to people about, local heroes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, frequency right now, every month, every other month, every few months.
Every other
Another
month.
month right now. And we should be up and running to every month within this year.
Yeah, perfect. And where I'm going is one of the upcoming episodes, we always kind of collaborate together and talk about the real estate, and they're the realtors. They are part of the association.
We're realtors.
As I'm air quoting it, you can't say that you're a realtor without being part of the association.
Yes, we are part.
Yes. And they've consulted with me on the lending side in one of the upcoming topics, which is huge. And we're just like, hey, let's talk about it.
Let's make it an episode.
Is seniors. And, without being disrespectful, the geriatrics or just the aging of real estate is I don't want to say a new dynamic, but it's has its own pros and cons, right? So there's limited income and fixed income and, the needs, and we'll talk about some of that on the real estate side that, as you're 65, those needs and wants are a little bit different than when you're 45 or even 35.
They're completely different. And what we're seeing is a much higher percentage of our business is with seniors.
I think just this community alone is 62 to 63% over 60 years old. So that's huge. It's huge for us in our area.
Yeah, so prior to getting on the air here, I pulled out some data. I'm the data nerd. Everything has to be backed up by data for me. So I went to the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, and oh my goodness, the plethora of information. I won't bore you with every detail, but the trend here is in just highlighting first-time buyers. First home, you're in your career, or at least a job sufficient to feel confident enough to want to buy something, but then actually follow through with it. There's a lot of challenges, right? And so 1981, that first-time homebuyer age was 29. That's the median age. Today, 2024, it's all the way up to 38. And that has significantly gone up, I'm going to say, since 2021, where it was only 33. So 5-year jump just in a few years is pretty significant. And
that means that people that are almost 40 are buying their first time home. And we have even had clients in their 50s buying their first time home. I mean, that's in California, I would say it's even maybe possibly higher than these statistics here.
Well, again, we're going to get into, and I want to hear your take on the real estate side, but on the lending side, I'm seeing that you graduate high school, many go off to college or trade school, then they're going back home, living with mom and dad.
Correct.
And although they have a career path now where they're making typically 6 figures, I'm seeing a lot of first-time home buyers that are a little bit more educated, higher in age, and also larger down payments. And that's possible because they're going home and able to save up for that down payment. When I first got into this, we're not going to talk about the years, but when I first got into it, it was, hey, I barely have 3% down. And that was probably one of the largest obstacles. They had a job, they had the income, they just didn't have the down payment saved, because as you're already establishing yourself, or you're renting and you have all the utility bills and, let's say, a car payment, maybe some student loan, it's tough to get above and beyond that to save up for a large down payment. So that dichotomy is definitely changing. And then the other one that I want to say is the repeat buyers. This is stepping up from first house to the second house. This is going from a staggering 36 all the way up to 61.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so you're making a change at 61, either as you retire or right before retirement. Once the kids are out, you're making a change at 61. That is significant.
The dynamic change is huge. The whole family, the kids are gone, or we're downsizing, or we're changing that home that no longer fits.
Yeah. Well, let's hear either one that wants to jump on this, of your take on the real estate side, because you're interacting more with engaging the borrowers of, okay, first time, we can start out first time and then jump into the step up purchase, how those needs are changing and what they're looking for in homes today versus 5 or even 10 years ago.
Well, I would say too, one of our clients in his 50s, he's buying his first home, and already in his mind, is this a backyard that's big enough for an ADU for my parents to come and stay when they get to that point? They're first-time home buyers, but they're also thinking multi-generational, and I think we've seen that a lot more.
That's huge. That's totally impacting everything and their concerns and their thoughts, because we are seeing those parents coming to live with you. We're seeing a different dynamic where they want that maybe income property down the way too. So they're really scrutinizing these properties, not just the first one to get into. They have other needs.
And we had clients, they were adding a second baby to their family, and their immediate thought was, we need to have a separate space for family to come and visit, because their family lives out of state. Their parents had retired out of state, and they needed a spot that could just be parent only in their house that they're going to purchase. So.
Pour the RV pad.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Keep the in-laws outside.
I know, right?
Tiny home, whatever.
Oh, goodness.
But, I would say a significant portion of our business is seniors, and they're looking for something specific, whether it's, we had one lady who wanted to build a multi-generational compound. She wanted her kids to come and live with her, all of her grandkids to come and live with her, and finding a property that fit that niche. Luckily, we happened to be selling one, but to try to find that in Ventura is difficult.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to spend millions and millions of dollars and get some sort of big ranch. There's a lot of communities here that aren't set up that way currently, but we're seeing a lot more ADUs being built, a lot more sectioning of houses, building out an in-law suite instead of just a downstairs bedroom.
Right.
We're adding little kitchenettes, or we're adding, another wall, or another bathroom to
Something
try
like studio, even just that kind of works off the house, converting garages, things like that makes sense. They don't have to be huge, they don't have to be extravagant, but we need that additional living.
Now, do you find this true that, again, as the median age is pushing up higher, I don't want to say they're making more informed decisions, but more thought put into the decision of it's easier for them to say no and find the right home. And maybe their goal is in the next 6 months to move, but maybe it takes them 2 years. Are you finding that this path, this journey is even longer, and they're willing to say that?
Yes, in fact, we have clients right now. We've looked at a number of homes, and they are really putting a lot of thought into the process because we think we hit all of their criteria, and yet they're not really ready to pull the plug yet because there are additional things that they think we might need further down the road. So we're kind of always looking for that perfect house, which doesn't exist.
Yeah, right.
But we need to get as close as we can.
Unless you build it with an unlimited blank check here, it really doesn't. Yeah.
Well, and we had clients famously that would get into escrow and they would find out that something would not work for them. Whatever it was very specific. It was very minute, seemingly to us, but it was something that this is going to be the house for the rest of their lives. So it needs to meet all these criteria. And it was a very competitive time in the market. So we weren't wasting time writing offers, but there was always something that they thought, that's not quite right. That's not quite right. It has to be perfect if we're going to stay here until the end.
And it shifted the whole dynamic. And we were in escrows, many escrows with them.
Yeah, but they eventually did find the home that they wanted. It took longer than they thought, but they did. They found what they needed.
What are some of the home features that you commonly see that they're looking for? What is
single story?
Single story.
Okay.
Single
All
story.
right.
Hands down.
All right. Single story. And I get that.
Always
Obviously,
single story.
it's more difficult to go up and down the stairs, the risk, the liability. But, is there a certain layout? Is there a certain kitchen? What else? What are they looking for in the house?
I would say it varies, but it's always very specific to them. These particular clients, they did have an RV. They did need to have extra space on the driveway. And maybe it wasn't that they needed a big fancy single-story house, but they needed these individual things. Another client loves gardening, doesn't love neighbors, but loves space. But it has to be something that you can take care of when you're of a certain age, too. We don't want a ton of maintenance that's involved in the house. A lot of them are looking at things because they've owned a home before. They're asking the specific questions. When was the plumbing redone? When was this roof put on? What kind of things have you done to upgrade the smart features of a home? Because I'm going to need help.
Later down the road, we don't want to get hit with big major maintenance costs right away. And putting roofs on and things like that and plumbing are very expensive. So we have to really look at this and some of this, how old things are really in the forefront. And again, trying to find places that have what we're talking about, a single story, which takes up most of a lot, and land on top of that, it can get pretty tough.
And not fixers.
They're not fixers. They're not doing the fixer.
They can paint a wall, but they're not going to be, gutting a bathroom.
Well, and I can attest to the cost of remodeling. I mean,
it's huge.
It is. You think it's going to be X, and it's X times 10.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's the time, the effort, finding a good contractor, finding one that's available, finding one that's affordable or within your budget. I don't know. And God bless anybody willing to take on some of those projects. Every time I get myself into it, I definitely do not come out ahead. I look back and why didn't I just buy the more expensive, already finished one?
And that's kind of where they're at, because first off, also they don't want to live in the remodel. We don't want to buy the home and then do the remodel, and we're there, and it's just so stressful. So you're right. We're looking for all those features up front that we don't have to address later on. It's a little tough.
Yeah. One of the stats in here is that first-time home buyers only make up presently about 24% of finance deals, which means subsequent purchases, investors, or cash offers. Are you seeing the financial dynamic change with the aging buyer?
Oh, absolutely, because they've got a huge nest egg of equity sitting in the house that they currently have. I mean, as you can attest, property values aren't going down in California.
You're right.
So every single day that they're living in their house, they're gaining equity. And sometimes it's not something that they can tap into. And one of the worst things that we find is when we meet with a client that's thinking about selling, but their home has really become an albatross around their neck. They cannot get ahead because of maintenance, deferred maintenance. They don't have the income to support what the payments are or the utilities are. We really think long and hard about what the options are for these people, because our job is to sell a house or help you buy a house. But if this is the only income that you have or the only equity that you have, we have to think about how to make this last. So we're not just walking in, selling your house, and then we don't care what happens to you. Karen and I love to be involved with our clients. And so we like to refer them to people like you and say, hey, what about a reverse mortgage? What about a HELOC? What about, how could we?
What are the options? Exactly. What it is that we can do that's maybe outside of the box, not just selling and then figuring out, just replace the home. When you reach that seniors kind of age, there are a lot of other things we have to take into consideration. So it's really working together with our partners to figuring out what that answer is for each individual. It's different for each and every client.
And I've definitely seen quite an uptick in the demand, we'll say, for alternative types of financing. And that's, on a fixed income, less documented, or even specifically for reverse mortgages. There was a stigma for many years, and, regulations are good and bad because they can be overregulated, but then you also don't want it underregulated. And I think there was the wild, wild west for reverse mortgages for many years. Since then, HUD has stepped in and really cleaned up the act, which I always appreciate. I've seen the pendulum swing over my career, and I wanted it at a healthy place, and I wanted to where good people that work hard can qualify for financing that are able to purchase a home, and also some sensible products that, like a reverse mortgage, you're able to use the equity in your home. So, I always say it's the quality of life, right? So it's inevitable we're all going to pass. So if you have this immense amount of equity and, somebody that's purchased it 50 years ago and their return on investment averages 5% per year, they bought it for $40,000 and today it's worth $1.5 or $2 million. The bank's not taking their home. It's their home. And what it's doing is either eliminating a mortgage payment or even providing them a monthly stipend where they can receive income or lump sums or equity lines of credit. There's actually several options that people are not even aware of that can really change their lifestyle as they live now. And we're seeing that obviously with the inflationary costs, although they say they're getting it under control, the price of gas, I just filled up. We just went to Northern California, and there was a Chevron that I paid $6.47 a gallon for premium gas.
Well, and don't try to buy eggs right now.
$6.47 a gallon. And so, there's so many things, not that, seniors are driving cross country, but, again, those just take the standard. You're doing the status quo of everyday shopping and driving. Everything is costing more, from the insurance cost to property taxes to the gas to your car insurance. So being on a fixed income, the fixed income does not keep up with those inflationary costs. And I know Social Security makes a I'm going to say it, a half-ass attempt each year to
Barely.
increase it 3%.
Here's a couple pennies.
Yeah, it's really not keeping up with that. I mean, so by having some of these options like the reverse, look, they're not for everybody, but I think especially if you're eligible, I think it's a conversation worth having. Is that the right choice for you?
Well, I think, like you said, it has kind of a stigma to it because there weren't as many regulations before. So some people aren't even aware of what it could bring them.
Yeah.
They aren't even aware of, I could get a monthly stipend from my house just because I own it outright.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes they're thinking, well, then there won't be anything left for my kids.
And
what do you
that
say
is-
to the people?
That's a huge one. So literally this week I met with a client, and she's in that hardship where she has a forward mortgage, she has a pension and Social Security, and she also has a roommate, her sister. So they're both widows and moved in together. It's a cute little setup, you know, like, you know, but the rising costs, they just don't have any extra money. And so I get it. We were looking into, you know, and I threw out the option of the reverse mortgage, and their first response was almost like shocking, like the bank's going to take my home. And I was just like, no, that is not, that is not the case. And like, number one, it's yours as long as, you know, it's yours. What happens after you pass is your heirs, if you have a will and a trust, and you should, they can even pay off what you owe and retain the property, or you can pick your own realtor and sell it. Like there's no taking the home from somebody.
I like the options, though, that you do give, because that's another option, even though they may not understand it or know or be a little fearful. That is a great option. Also for somebody, if the house is right, you know, if it's already the right house, it's single story, it's small, you know, you can live with your sister, it's great. But just that fear of the expense, the daily stuff that we're talking about. I've had actually a client in the past who didn't want to move out of a 4-bedroom, 2-story house. It was just him, because he thought, I live here for $1,300 a month. And yet this home was perfect for somebody who had, you know, lots of kids and they needed space. He hadn't been upstairs for 2 years, but he was fearful. And here a reverse mortgage would have been a great situation for him, or the fact that maybe we sell the house and we downsize. You know, there are just options, and I love options. So people, those ideas and thoughts of how it better suits them and benefits.
You know, my grandmother, 94, she has a single-story home, 3 or 4 bedroom, on at least an acre or two. I mean, it would be a gem for somebody. She tells me she's going to die in that house. Like, and I think, you know, knowing her personally, you know, clearly there's many reasons that I can think. One, she grew up during the Depression era. So there's a little bit more of the hoarding that they have, specifically her, where they don't just give up things. Everything has value. And then the other thing is, my grandfather passed away at a pretty early age, and grandma never had to work. She's not a day in her life that she ever worked. And so her world was my grandfather. And so like, and he provided well for her. He drove the beat up Toyota trucks back in the day. She always had a Lincoln Town car, you know, like kind of the cliche, he took care of her. So I think there's like, she may have $1.5 million house, but in her eyes, it's priceless because the memories, and it was what my grandfather provided for her. And so like, is that house the best suited for her? Absolutely not. I mean, she should be in a 12 to 1,500 single story home with, you know, just the basics, you know, a big TV and a little yard for her little teeny dog, and she's good to go. But, you know, like for her, it's just not even a question of selling or getting her to move out of that. So,
well, and we hear that all the time. Karen and I go door knocking, and I'm only going to leave this house feet first on a gurney. You know, like I'm not leaving till I'm dead. And I look at them, and some you're like, okay, you can still maintain this house. But some, it's just an absolute albatross.
And we see the maintenance just getting worse,
dragging
and worse.
them down.
Just the roofs are going, they're needing painting.
You're knocking on the door. They say, I'm never going to leave, but there's a hole in the roof. But they can't get up there to put a tarp on. It's just leaking into their house. And what kind of life is that?
Right.
You know, you don't want to leave, but you also is that the kind of life that you want to have? If there's equity in that home, how do you utilize that to live your golden years well? You know, and I think some of the older people kind of get that. You know, you'll see them moving to Phoenix, Arizona, or they're gonna, you know, become snowbirds. They're gonna spend some time in Florida. But the oldest of the older generation, they have a harder time letting go. And I think to a detriment, you know, to their health sometimes, to their well-being.
You know, it's almost like some of the older folks that are sitting on this equity. Yeah, I see some problem solving with the reverse, but it almost needs to be half of these. What's the best fit is almost like a reset, where like the two sisters, they had mortgages, a first and a second, right? So although they had a ton of equity, they still have a mortgage balance. Now, they sell and they cash out and really tap into this equity. They could go out to Arizona and pay cash for a home, plus throw a whole bunch of money into a savings account and, you know, kind of
enjoy that for the rest of the
enjoy that. Right. And so, like, you know, again, where there is an option of a reverse mortgage, I'm seeing a lot more of these where you almost need a reset. I don't even know what to call it, but just sell and rebuy. But then again, I don't know how capital gains are going to work. And then the other thing too is, you know, they were talking Arizona, everybody's talking, you know, going out of state. I don't know that they are reciprocating with the property tax base that what we have here. And this is now part of the state of California. Whereas if you sell, you're grandfathered into a tax rate if you purchase within a certain percentage and a certain timeline, and look up all the guidelines, right? So my little disclaimer that I have to say, but that's a huge perk. I think previously that was a hindrance, where that was a whole nother reason of why you didn't want to sell, is it was only reciprocating counties for many years.
I remember that.
And then so it was like, hey, I want to move to Ventura, but they don't reciprocate with this. Well, that's a bummer. You know, now it's halting that altogether. So, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe instead of Phoenix, you go to Palm Springs. You know, and keep your tax
works
base
within California. You know, but it gives you options. It does.
Did you? I don't know if you guys listen, but I have daily little videos I'm putting out right now, just little quick ones. Yesterday, I discovered that Disney has a master plan community out in Palm Desert, Cotino. Yes, and starts at a cool $2 million, goes up to a nice $4 million.
Yeah.
And it has this beautiful lagoon, and there's a section with like 55 and over, but then there's, you know, a nice big area for all ages as well. And then in the next few years, they're building out this lagoon that you can join a membership and you can go kayaking and then shopping and all this. I was dying to see like all the details I could, right? You know, it's in an HOA. You know, there's crazy rules and regulations. I couldn't get my hands on that, but I did read the disclaimer, and it's like, cannot guarantee water level, right? Because we're out in the desert and they're going to put a lagoon.
Oh my
that thing's going to evaporate in like a month. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Then it says, can't guarantee the water level or if it'll have water at all.
Oh my
Can't
gosh.
guarantee that we're going to build all of these shops. Like, I mean, you just go through it. It's like, okay, we're going to throw out these expensive little track and plan it, but we're not going to.
And if enough people buy them, then we'll think about adding the amenities that we promised.
Yeah.
Well, and there is a surf club out there somewhere too, where they've got this huge wave pool and you can go surfing there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's make a surf place in the desert. That doesn't
Where are
seem
we
to
getting all this
track,
water? That's the next.
That's the liquid gold in California.
Yeah, right. We already don't. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. So
that's just what it is. We have to work with
Cotino. So
Cotino.
$2 million start.
Go check that out. And, if you can, and you're both realtors, you can register because they'll give you the referral fee. I'd love to get my hands on the CC&Rs and the rules and the regulations.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
I said, let's go take a look.
Yeah.
Visit the theme park while we're there.
We'll have it even 15 minutes.
Yeah, tell them I'm interested. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. You know, it's appealing, right? You go to Disneyland and you're like, gosh, somebody takes care of all this. And then they take care of it so well that you never even think about the landscaping at Disney because it's just always taken care of. and some of these people, some of our senior clients, they would do well to be in an HOA community because those things are kind of taken care of. But oh no, HOA, they've got rules.
I love the whole idea of being able to move to something newer and nicer and just have it all done over 55. How fantastic. Active 55-year-olds and up, we're seeing a lot more of that. So people love their pickleball, they love their play, they love all of these things.
Right.
We're not just sitting around getting old. We want
Well, and
to
I
be
can
active.
advocate for Sun City. Johnny and I sang in a Sun City parade one time, and I can't tell you how many clubs, hundreds of clubs had a little, float in this parade. Most of them, the float was just somebody's golf cart that they dressed up. But I mean, if you were into, rock tumbling, jewelry making, crochet, swimming, pickleball, shuffleboard, I mean, anything
Active
that you could think of. And, there is a stigma. Oh, those are old people.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've got hiking clubs. My aunt is part of a hiking club. She's going from Phoenix to Palm Springs for a week to do hikes in Palm Springs with her hiking club.
And golfing,
I mean,
the whole thing is
yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
They're going on vacations. They're going on all these outings and trips, and there's all kinds of activities. If you want that kind of life, I mean, those people are happy and ready to make friends.
Sadly, we don't have too many of the senior 55 and up communities. If they are
Here, local.
locally, they're going to be mobile home parks. And my parents live in the one in Ventura, and it's nice, but I don't think it's as outgoing. And even for seniors, like, it's mobile homes, so there's crazy steps up into their units, and it's not the easiest. The one that I think is amazing, and I actually love doing loans in there, is Leisure Village.
I was just going to mention that because I've sold so many properties in there. It's kind of a great place, but again, they have a lot of community activities, but it's not as involved as you would think. Like some of these other communities, like, really pull you out and get you.
Well, and I think there's a Sun City down near Temecula.
Nice.
I mean, there are some communities, but they're just not by the coast here.
The downside with the Leisure Village, I'll say, and the feedback that I get is, I love that they're single story. They have the guard shack, and it's laid out nice. The HOA dues are
Very high.
for what it is, $500 to $600 for what it is and what you get. I don't, again, I've just done a few loans, but it makes, actually, I've done a reverse mortgage in there.
Oh, look at you.
Maybe two. Actually, I think I've done a few of them in there. So, Leisure Village, go check it out. It's nice.
It is nice.
We have a client right now looking there because she's wanting to downsize because she has a property in the desert, and so she jumps back and forth, and she just wants something that feels gated, comfortable, safe, and that's her go-to.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, especially if you're traveling a lot. If you've got grandkids that live somewhere else too,
on the
you
go.
may just want something smaller that's easy to maintain.
Yeah.
So if you are of a certain age, you have options.
You do.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're hearing it. The house dynamic is definitely changing of what they're looking for, the layout, the obviously single story. You've beat that into me, thank you. And some of the functions, and again, the ADU need, and I think that's everybody right now wants one, but specifically with the older, having multi-generations in your home and still having your privacy and your own little space. And I love that compound idea. I wish there was like a subdivision where you can kind of build 2 or 3 homes, and they're like 1 acre parcels.
Yeah.
And I have seen that out in Arizona. There's some on the way to the Grand Canyon. I think there's some self-claimed
Compounds out there.
compounds out there
I like
of trailers. I don't know. You get a little crazy out there in Arizona.
Well, I was looking at one the other day. It was a house, a huge 4,000 square foot house. It had a guest house, and then it also had a mobile home on the property as well. But I mean, that's north of $2 million, and not a lot of people can afford that.
Right.
Typically when you're looking at a multi-generational home, and one of your stats here, 17% of home buyers are looking for a multi-generational home. So, like this one woman that we were talking about earlier, her kids were selling their places. She was selling her home, and they were all buying one together. So,
Now, clearly, you don't just lend in the city of Ventura. It's all over in Ventura County. The other dynamic is just the city itself. Let's just start with the city of Ventura. What are the options? One is the beach, right? You're over at Pierpont. Higher maintenance costs because you're at the beach. tighter quarters. I mean, to try to park down one of those lanes.
You just say gazoon tight every time your neighbor sneezes.
Yeah. And then, if you have a very nice home, you're going to be up here on the hillside. And then again, that involves stairs. I mean,
Stairs,
even
lots
if
of
it's a
stairs.
single story, most of them are not, you're going to walk up some type of stairs. Ventura, I don't think is very senior. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably a 2. I mean, do you think there's better areas within the county, like, is Santa Paula? I mean, clearly that's a lot flatter, or
Well, even Camarillo, I mean, that's where Leisure Village is.
yeah,
I mean, there are some larger lot sizes there in Camarillo if you do want a multi-generational home. But I would say, too, that one lady, it was far up the avenue. So there were larger lot sizes and there were less, it's not in the thick of things. You're definitely going to have to find a place that's further from city center.
yeah. But then that also brings a whole nother round of issues, insurance.
Oh, yeah.
Both Leisure Village as
That's
well
a
as
huge issue right
over
now for
here,
us.
you're mountainous, so the fire risk is much higher, so the premiums are much higher. Leisure Village, part of the community, is a flood zone.
That's correct. Is that they moved those flood maps a few years ago, and then part of it, which is
A few
really
years ago is
odd.
2010.
Oh,
We're,
well,
we're
in
dating
my world,
ourselves. And the fact that I know
Years
that.
ago. But yeah, I remember when part of it, we had it like just cut in and like,
Yeah.
you're in a flood zone, the neighbor's not.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Yeah, so that is also interesting too, of flood zone. There's not many flood zones around here. And so, what is a flood zone is good old FEMA. They decide the floodplains and how high of a risk it is. And if you fall within a special hazard flood zone, which would require flood insurance. So just an additional insurance. This is kind of, I guess, alluding to kind of the better side for California, because so many retirees want to go to Florida. And I'm like, okay, there's hurricanes. So you have hurricane insurance, you have flood insurance. Yes, your home may be $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, but I think you may have, $2,000 a month of insurances just to pay for that home. So
true.
I don't know that there's a great solution for anything. So it's just kind of stick with where you're passionate about, but you have some obstacles to overcome.
Well, and I think too, we're living in an age where, it used to be everybody grew up in Ventura, everybody stayed in Ventura, so your parents had the kids and the all of them were localized. But now when you have people moving across country, like if your kids and your grandkids live, 3 states over, do you really want to stay here and live here when everybody else is there?
And that's what we're seeing a lot of in our older
Yeah.
people. They get to an age where they're like, the kids, my own kids, the grandkids, everybody's not here local. And they have a sense or a need. They want to move closer to family. We see a lot of that. That's another option that we have to discuss because
Yeah,
what if they're
particularly
getting
after
violent?
any health diagnosis. And if you find out
want
that
to be
you've got
closer.
cancer, you don't want to be going through that alone. You take a fall. Well, how are you going to rehab if you don't have family nearby to kind of help?
So maybe some of the other things that are popping to mind, do you get questions? Seems like it used to be a lot more prevalent is what school district. But with that, it's probably not as much, right?
Especially in Ventura, you've
No.
got open enrollment, so you just choose
Yeah,
where you want
right.
them to go to school.
Senior citizens want to know what the services are, doctor
Yeah,
situations, things like that.
That was
are
the other thing that I was
important.
going to ask is, do they ask more about hospitals and things like that?
Absolutely, because even just in our Ventura County, like if you go up to Santa Barbara, you're out of the Kaiser, and a lot of our clients have Kaiser services, but you move out of the area, you don't have to change your medical.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big deal when you have health issues.
Yeah, if you're going to go see your doctor once a week, you're not going to want to drive an hour. You want to be close.
Yeah. Plus, Ventura has two main hospitals just in the city of Ventura. And then there's St. John's in Oxnard, plus all kinds of medical. I feel like there's a ton of medical facilities
Right
here.
Right here, that's important. Close by, you can get to within 15 to 20 minutes. So that's a huge, that's something
big
that
deal.
they have to think about.
Yeah.
That you didn't think about when you were 30.
Right, because you only went to the doctor twice a year, and now you're going twice a week.
Twice
That's
a
big
year? What are you
difference.
talking about?
Maybe 2 years for Greg.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
But I know, I mean, I have my in-laws, they're at the doctor at least once a week because they're both of a certain age, right? So that one person's going to the doctor this week, the next person's the next week, and there's not just this doctor, we go to see that doctor, and Kaiser's kind of it's all kind of compartmentalized. So you go see your cancer doctor, then you go see your pulmonologist, then you go see this person.
Yeah.
And by the time you know it, you're spending so much time at the doctor's office. I mean, then if you have to commute on top of that, that's difficult.
It can be a big part of your life as we age.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be driving that much.
We don't.
Yeah. One of the other things that is my frustration is that we're very limited on the new housing that we build in the area. And there's many reasons, of the coastal commission and the protection that they have on land and all of that. But what they do build, I'm just scratching my head of like, why did they build that? It's like these huge apartment complexes or stacked condos, as many as you can get, with barely any parking lot. You already know the streets surrounding it are going to be filled and more of a traffic hazard, so much that they're changing the laws. They just changed here in the city of Ventura of, a setback that's required at each corner just because you can't see when you're trying to turn left or right.
Yeah.
So if I look at the new construction over here on the west side, it's 2-story homes. Down here, there's, stacked condos on Thompson, on San Juan.
It's more dense.
Is anyone building a single-story home at all? Are you aware of any?
Even on the far east side, Del Sol, those are basically 4,000 square foot homes on a 4,000 square foot lot. It's just you're so packed in there, you're so tight,
not conducive to the senior living. Really,
yeah, it really isn't.
Yeah.
So then, what you're stuck with is 1960s homes. And then again, we've got fixers, we've got problems, we've got maintenance.
I think that's why sometimes Arizona and other places like Texas are being, more attractive because you can get your single family.
Well, I found a house in Arizona. It sold 2 years ago for $505. It's currently for sale for $499.
Oh my goodness.
You can buy a brand new home for less than they sold it for when they first built it.
Wow.
So yeah, that's
$499, and you get a 5-bedroom house.
But that also tells of the market. Now, I came originally from the Central Valley. We were one of the top hit in the foreclosure crisis, right? So, of the many compounding effects, features, whatever you want to say, pitfalls that went into that, and one of the things before we even started recording, The Economist is saying that builders need to keep a tight inventory. And that's where, when you're in Arizona, driving from here to Arizona, it seems like once you get out of Palm Springs, it is flat and nothing. You could build as many homes as you want. Right. So they are doing that. How many new subdivisions there are, it could be packed today. What it takes to get that home to actually the construction phase is years of planning prior to that. And so I think, again, it's the supply and demand, whereas you overbuild that, you just attested to that. Why can you buy it cheaper 2 years old, even though it's brand new? They overbuilt in that area.
Yeah, they built a whole new freeway over there.
Yeah, they did, and they just continue. So we'll see people that we understand will move out after like 2 years to the newer development. So there's a lot of turnover. You've got lots of choices, and you're seeing those single stories. So it's like, I want to live in a newer home. They keep moving out,
development
further and
hopping.
further.
Well, it's funny. My aunt moved, I want to say 5 years ago. She's already in her third home there. You just find one that's better and you move.
You just move. So
well, and
choices.
This could also maybe be, the fact that, okay, I'm in Ventura. I've been out to the Phoenix area. I know some of the regions. I know Scottsdale versus Phoenix. But then you pick an area, and until you're settled there, you don't know if this is the area that you want to be in, right? It kind of takes you being there and established of, where is my doctor, but my doctor that I like? Where is the Vaughns or the Vaughns that I like, not scary Vaughns, kind of picking that region that's local to your needs and wants. I can see how there would be some turnover with that.
Well, and I think too, we've got clients that, I've lived here my whole life. I know the neighborhoods. I know the things, and then they move to an area and they're like, well, why did I move here? You know, I don't like this aspect, or I don't like that, or I'm not near the grocery store that I wanted. And you're thinking, well, but you said you lived here. Like, we didn't go into all these considerations because you said you knew everything.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you don't even know until you live in a place, like you're saying. They're like, oh, I guess I don't want to live over here. And after all, you know?
Yeah. Goodness. Well, what else do we have senior-wise? I mean, we dedicated our episode here of seniors. We focused on kind of the home itself. We talked about reverse mortgages a little bit, some of the different needs of that in the space. Any other needs that are
Well, something
central?
for us that's come up with some of the seniors or people that we work with is the income, you know, so that we have to consider that. Sometimes they don't always have the income. We mentioned when you say Social Security, or sometimes not much, but the house itself, sometimes that's an issue for us when we're thinking about what the next step is.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, and even services too. You know, a lot of our clients need services, but they don't know how to go about getting them or what's available in this area versus that area. So I think Karen and I, we love to have a hands-on approach with our clients and really guide them through. Okay, let's
Put the
talk
resources
about
together, exactly, that there might be needing, that needed to change as we age.
Yeah.
It does change, and so we do want to have those resources available.
I think some of the, like, I know the Veterans Center, and there's a couple of them. There's a new one in Ventura, and there's the Calvet home over on the east side of Ventura. They have a lot of great resources, and clearly, I think a lot of that is catered towards seniors. A lot of the seniors that reside there, obviously, they're older and whatnot. So I think they would be a good resource. There's a senior center right here, which I've been to, but I'm not sure how active they are or engaging in the community of resources. But that is, you're right, a very important tool to have of, you know, my grandma's 94. She's not driving anymore.
Right.
She's relying upon my mom to take her to doctor's appointments. But if my mom's not there, who does? You know, is dial a ride or, you know, I think,
Access.
access. Yeah.
Yeah. And then even too, like Meals on Wheels. You know, I tried to look into that for my in-laws, and they just happened to be just outside the border of that. We would never have known to look for that, you know, prior to them buying that place. But yeah, you're just a half a mile too far, and now you don't get Meals on Wheels. And you're just like, oh, didn't even think about that. That wasn't a consideration. But as you age, your needs change. You need different services, and maybe it's time to move to somewhere where you can get things like Meals on Wheels.
And Karen, what you were saying, you know, the income issue, you know, that's a tough one. And, you know, there's not as many solutions. It's like, you know, my grandma's not going back to work. She's not starting work at 94, right? Nope. So she has to rely upon what my grandfather's left to her or her house. And that's, again, I think one of the best solutions, again, as you start to narrow down your options of income, when you have a reverse mortgage, it might not be because you need the monthly, you know, well, maybe you do need the monthly income, but qualifying wise, they only require you to pay for the property taxes and insurance. So
that's what's fantastic.
So to eliminate the mortgage, again, if you're on a fixed income, it just frees up so much more of your income. Not that you have a ton, you know, Social Security, what are you, maybe $3,500 a month?
Right.
You know, so if $500 of that's going towards taxes and insurance, well, now you have $3,000. But if you had a mortgage, that would be, you know, another $1,000 or $1,500 that you would be responsible for. So it is definitely, you know, $1,000 extra that you could potentially have is a game changer.
Keeps it in the household and allows you to stay in that property that you still want to stay in, even though it may not be ideal because it's too big, but still it keeps you in the place you're at, and it takes that financial burden off you. It lessens that. So great options with the reverse
$1,000
mortgage.
extra, then you can go buy eggs.
There you
Right?
go.
I mean, like,
And
it's
fill your car up
crazy.
with gas.
It's crazy. You think I've worked all these years, I've done all this stuff, and now I have to sit down with a budget and like make sure I didn't buy too much butter this week. You know, like it's not something that it's not the way you want to live too when you get to that age. You know?
Right. And that's the other thing. My grandma's so set in her ways, like, you're not changing what she eats and how she does things. This is how she's always done it. She even has her scheduled beauty parlor, and that's what she calls it, the beauty parlor. And,
love it.
you know, she goes there, I don't know if it's every 2 weeks, but it half of it is maybe they touch her hair. It's gossiping and getting her out of the house. And oh my goodness.
I like that because it just takes away that financial stress on the person, and yet they live their normal life. They live it to the best. They're, go on, enjoy what you've got.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to kind of throw off this other dynamic too. I just recently, I said, went up north, and one of my closest friends just retired at 48 years old.
Ooh, wow.
And it's not that he struck it rich. He started in law enforcement at 18, and he's worked 30 years and retired as a police chief at 48 years old.
Amazing.
So he's fallen into these stats of like, he's going to step up to his next house probably, but he's also retired. And, another one of my friends, and I just had lunch with him, he's a few years older, but he's maybe 50, 51. He also retired this last year from law enforcement. So, the trades are coming back, but also the trades have still always been here. And in some of those situations, now here's what's changed in the evolution of this is they got into most city or government employees have pensions versus a retirement plan. And so how they calculate how much money that you make, they've had to change that formula because all of the cities are broke, right? So they're actually going to retire making higher income than they made while they were working.
Wow.
My friend sent me a picture yesterday from the brewery. He's like, I'm getting paid to drink right now. It's still new to him.
Yeah.
But at 48, that mindset of like, oh my goodness. So, obviously that's not always going to work out to that perfection. He's the perfect example, and I'm so jealous. But again, like, I'm so happy for him that he started on a career path that he loved, followed it all the way through, and was provided and rewarded very well.
Yeah, rewards. That's
to retirement, and so he now has a pension that as long as he's alive, he's going to make that income.
And to that point, some of our people don't have a big pension, but when they sell their house, they do have a big chunk of change. And sure, you could go buy another house cash, or you could buy some investment properties. I mean, that's something that I think a lot of older people, I don't want to be a landlord, you know, I don't. And it just seems so frightening. But real estate is a great way to build wealth. If you're worried about, that your children, if the generations that follow you, are they going to have anything? Are they going to be able to buy anything? You could be a part in that. You can help them with their down payment. You can, buy something with them and, have that kind of like an investment for you, investing into their future as well. But I mean, some are just buying properties in their old age. I've got clients in their 80s and they're still looking at properties.
Yeah.
Because that's what they love, the idea of real estate and the way that it builds wealth.
And passing it along, absolutely. I'm still doing that. I'm loving that. I'm always looking for the next, little opportunity, and not big fancy properties at all, just building the wealth, so that my grandkids have something, it's, why not build it continually to the very end?
Yeah, the stat that I love is your net worth. I mean, if you're a renter, in 2024, your net worth was $10,000.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Now you own a home and the average net worth is now $420,000, right? Your wealth is exponential, and that's, not saving up every day. This is just because you're acquiring an asset. You have to live somewhere, right?
That's right.
So if you can live and own it, you're working towards paying it off, but also this asset that grows in value. And so, the old American dream, it doesn't have to have a white picket fence, but again, something that you can invest in, I think it goes a long ways.
And it just works for you. It just kicks away year after year after year.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even just play the appreciation game. If you never put anything into the property and it's a tear down, it's still worth more than when you bought it for.
10 years later?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
But if you maintain it, I mean, the sky's the limit in some ways. If you're adding on and you're building it up and you're making it look nice, I mean, that's the key right there. If you're young and you're listening to this episode, you've made it all this many minutes in.
Yeah.
Buy something
Doesn't matter
today.
what it is.
If you can afford it, buy something.
Well, and a couple other just on this is, again, I keep referencing my grandmother. She's 94. She's the perfect example to talk about. She inherited my great grandparents' home, and it's not a big fancy home at all. It's a very vanilla, as basic as you could get, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. But she also uses that talk about somebody that didn't want tenants and to have that work. She hired property management company. They selected the tenants. She gets paid every single month. That house, of course, is paid off. So now that is also supplementing her income as well by this home that, again, is just helping her out. And, you know, I see the younger generation inspired, and they can connect the dots that, like, hey, it's great to have a home, but what if I have a home with an ADU? What if I have two homes? What if I have two homes with two ADUs? They're playing the numbers game. And again, as you build your wealth, you see that, you understand that, you know, it's tough, it's hard work, and it takes a long time to go out there and work a 9 to 5, work a laborer's job. If you're an electrician, hey, you can do well at it, but how do you get far ahead? And that's through the real estate game.
Yeah.
And I love that. You know, you just mentioned, you know, ADUs and things like that. For every senior, it's a different need. It's a different desire as to what that looks like. And for me personally, even though I do already have the single-story home, I would love to put a small ADU in, and then I would live in that, right? And then I create, hey, rent the house out. Because you're always looking for that income, right? Makes my retirement years perfect. And I don't have this big, huge house to take care of. Yeah. I love it. So it's not just necessarily, you know, that you're going to make it rent. It may be for you, what your need is. And so many different needs out there. So it's just, it's nice to be able to look at those options and figure it out for people.
Well, you guys heard it first. We have our senior specialist. That's what we're going to call you right here.
Yes, that's
Natalie and Karen. They got
seniors.
it down, and you know, very attentive to the details and the demands of what it takes. You know, finding a home buyer is not one size fits all, and you know, it's, as Gary Keller says, agents must accept easy deals are dead. You know, we get very involved in our professions, myself including. You know, as I'm looking at, you know, pre-approving somebody, I'm also looking at bank statements, not to be nosy. It's because I have to. So I know when you're eating at McDonald's and KFC, you know, so you really get personal with the clients that we work with. And so, you know, we appreciate your humility to open up your books and your hearts and your minds to us. But again, our best interest is to look out for you. And so just share, whether it's your lender or your realtors, share what you're looking for, be open, be honest, and that's how we can help you the best.
Well, and to that quote,
Yes.
like Gary Keller said, it's not just us that have to accept that fact. It's our clients as well.
Yeah.
The days of an easy deal are gone because the houses aren't as new. They're not as problem-free, and we have a lot more personalities.
And to be,
you know,
be honest,
involved.
Natalie and I, we deal with complex issues and transactions all the time. But the other thing that what we really give is that customer service, which is for some of our seniors very specific on details. They want you to come. They want you to be present. They're not just DocuSign us. We don't see you. We see them. We are actually there. We do a lot of wet signature still with clientele that won't, you know, not comfortable with DocuSign electronic signature. So that level of customer service is different with our seniors, and it's because they still demand that customer service and they want it.
I learned business on the power of a handshake. And that to me has just resonated so much of, you know, the perfect handshake, not too firm, not too soft, but also your word means something. And so you have to do what you're going to say you're going to do and say what you're going to do and follow through. And that's it. Like I appreciate that, you know.
Well, we appreciate having that partnership with you because you're on the same lines with us with that type of service that we want to provide.
Yeah.
We're not just anybody else. We really go above and beyond for that particular reason. You know, we want to stand out. We want to be that person you think of always.
Yeah.
You know, so it's great to have good partners.
And doing things in person, as you're saying, like, yes, we do a lot of, you know, on the app and DocuSign. There's a lot of that. The young generation soaks that up. They don't even want to look at you.
Of course.
But the older generation, they want that handshake. They want to check you out. They want to see, are you somebody I want to do business with?
Yeah.
And, you know, I commend them on that, and I love and appreciate it. So, well, again, here we're about an hour in, and I think that's good to wrap it up on the senior discussion. Again, our senior specialists here, they've talked about the challenges, the dynamic. They're here. They're very patient. So if you are a senior looking to buy or sell, we're going to put all the information in this for Natalie and Karen. I'm trying to like point a finger of where am I putting this information?
Well, we'll say really quickly, Karen and Natalie with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, California Properties, DRE 02085495 and 01379897.
Nicely done.
I think we're
Oh
good.
my goodness, you did
compliant.
that very, very well. I don't know all my licenses. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Okay, we'll get them in there. Make sure and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next episode. We'll also have the link for the Ventura Local Community Real Estate newspaper periodical that they have, because it is amazing, and I'm in there. And this is Greg Abrams on G Money, Real Talk on everything mortgages and real estate. We're out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.